what a great time to finally do the wrap up of the last half of last month, because I haven't read any books this month or anything. Sorry, I'm kind of behind. You forgive me? Yeah, so it's been kind of crazy, but that's okay, because the point is to, read the books, enjoy the books, have life, and life is grand, right? So right now I'm in the middle of Thoroughfare by Christopher Morley. I remember how I just did that book haul? Yeah, so I went to pick up all those Austen books. One of them didn't come in, but anyway, I went to pick those up. We've already talked about them, so I don't have to show them, right? But I decided to look at their rare collector's books. And yeah, there were a couple of Morleys. And I mean, this is my year of Morley, right? So I had to get them. So yeah, I got a couple of those. And I'm reading, just about to start the Memoirs of Jane Austen. I'm reading Thoroughfare by Morley, as I said. I'm about to start The Light Between Worlds. I hadn't started it. I picked it up the other night. And I was just so tired. I got nothing done that night. But I'm like, okay, who cares? And then Mere Christian Hermeneutics. I have finished chapter 1. I've changed how I'm reading that one. And so I think it's going to work a little better. I hadn't mentioned it, but we're doing Psalms in Our Lady's Bible Study. And I have this book, Sheltering Mercy by Ryan Whitaker Smith, who did one of the books that was my Advent things. Anyway, he has taken the Psalms and turned them into prayers. More overt prayers that our brains can get. And so I'm kind of reading this alongside that. And so, I haven't been mentioning it, but I am doing that. And now I can't get it put back in there. Whatever. So this is fun stuff, reading along. But I did get, let me see, let me do some counting. I have to do some counting here. I can't wait to tell you guys about the burning of Rosemont Abbey. Remember how I went nuts over that book? Yeah. Can't tell you yet because I just finished it a couple nights ago, but ooh, yes. Yeah, I've got 9 books to talk about. Yeah, hi, how you doing? So first up was another Cherringham mystery. It is by Matthew Costello and Neil Dudgeon's the narrator, so it's Neil. Let me see, is it on here? Richards, because Richards. So this is like number 47. They're short mysteries, but they're very well done, because you don't feel like you're only getting this little bitty mystery, because it really is. They're longer than short stories, but they're shorter than most novellas. They're just like 3 hours or so of 3 or 4 hours at the most. I think it's more like 2.5 to 3 hours of audio, but they're so good, and they are narrated by Neil Dudgeon, he's the guy from Midsummer Murders, the one who takes over for the first guy. That's all I can tell you. But so yeah, this was Silent Night, Stolen Night. Okay, so in this series we have Jack and Sarah. Jack is an ex-New York City cop who lives in the Cotswolds I think it's in the Cotswolds, isn't it? Yeah, in England. He lives on a longboat. That's where he lives. And then his friend Sarah, they've been friends for years, at least 10 years. These have been going on for at least 10 years in their world, because her kids were, I think the oldest was like 12-ish when it started, and now she's clearly solidly an adult. Because her little brother is solidly an adult. So it's been at least 10 to 15 years of friendship. And that's all there is. Although there was a couple back that things looked like, are we going to turn this romantic? I don't know, because they never really have. They've just been great friends, and it's been fine that way. I love it. But there was this moment back there and the way that they did it, that made me wonder. It also made me okay with it, which I also thought was kind of interesting. But then there hasn't been anything in the next couple. And then in this one, there was just like this hint of things feel like it's maybe changing again. But something else happened. So, okay, I gave it 5 stars because I had a blast with it. It was a great story. But, so in this one, Jack's neighbor is coming home drunk from the pub. He's always drunk or high. He's coming home drunk from the pub. He sees something and he's upset about it. You know, he's coming through the churchyard, you know, and so they've got the graves and everything, and he's upset about it. And about the same time, he sees someone hurt. And then, was there a fire? Or am I combining stuff? Because I just finished the Burning of Rosemont Abbey, but I feel like, right? No, there wasn't a fire. Was there a fire? There was definitely a break-in. Okay? Gosh, I feel like there was a fire. That's weird. But anyway, so there was definitely a break-in, and this really important thing was stolen. Okay. And then they've got to figure out who did it, why, and how, and all the stuffness. That was great. It was fine. Whatever. But, and I loved everything about it until the very, very, very end. And the reason, this barely squeaked 5 stars for me. I let him have it, but it's the second time recently, maybe in a row, but they could have skipped one. But it's the second time that they have done something legally and morally questionable at the end, and it bothered me. For one thing, it doesn't feel in character, and yet on the other hand, there was a reason for it, and everything had been resolved as far as, you know, things that are taken are returned. All the things that you expect to happen in a mystery. You know, it's not a mystery if someone doesn't get caught, right? You know, if the you know, if someone dies and the murderer doesn't get caught, is it really a mystery, or is it just a story that has a bad thing happen in it, right? So, I mean, there is that going on, but so yes, everything is caught and handled as far as the victims getting their property back, etc., etc. But there are other things that weren't dealt with the way that legally they should have been. I can't say much more without giving stuff away, and it really bothered me. It almost knocked a star off. The only reason I didn't is because I was like, am I putting my personal preference over something? Am I, you know, I couldn't just justify it, so I didn't. But anyway, it was good. I really enjoyed it, and I'm obviously looking forward to the next one. They do not come out fast enough for me. You know, I found out about them when there was like 30 of them or something like that, so I was able to binge through it, and then I have to wait, you know, so yeah. Okay. There was that one. Then there is, I read, a lot of people have been talking about, so I don't know where I heard about them, but the 12 Sleighs of Christmas by Jacqueline Frost. I actually read 3 of them, and I hope I don't get them all confused. Okay, so in this first one, Holly White comes home. She's supposed to be coming home because she's supposed to be getting married at her family's Christmas tree farm. And life is supposed to be grand. It's really funny because all the cheesy things that kind of get over the top done at Christmas, you know, in Christmas books, it's in here. But because they own this Christmas tree farm in this town that is all things Christmas, it's not just one person going all out Christmas. And it's kind of a commercial endeavor. And so commercializing Christmas, which is something I don't usually like, makes this cheesiness actually work, which is kind of interesting and kind of fun. But, you know, Holly comes home not for the wedding like she's supposed to, but because her fiance has called it off. And then someone is murdered on the Christmas tree farm property, and everything points to her father. And of course, she knows her father didn't do this, and so she's going to prove it. There's a sheriff in town, of course, right, because sheriff. And it's all about, how we gotta figure out the things and do the stuffness. The clues were great. The story was great. The characters are a hoot. They are just so much fun. She has a great cast of absolutely really fun characters, and that I loved the characters. I love the fact that sometimes amateur sleuths are either too bumbling or too astute. She's a really nice blend of both, where she will make assumptions and jump to conclusions a little too quickly in her pursuit of justice for her friends and family and whatever. And so, because you can see why she's just jumping to the next thing. Sometimes it just feels like they're, latching on to whatever thought they have without any rhyme or reason. But this one, she really loves her friends and family. She's very loyal and committed to her home and family in town. I love the fact that, she grew up in this crazy world of Christmas Tree Farm and all the cheesy Christmas stuff, and she loves her childhood. She doesn't have this, it was just so horrible to be so stuck with all the Christmas. She doesn't have that attitude, which is really nice, because too often that's the route that someone takes it, and I understand why. And if there weren't so many that were that way, I think it's kind of sad that this is, in my mind, based on all the books I've read, this is kind of unique that this gal was brought up in this, happy, focused on joy and the crazy fun stuff of Christmas all year long in her family, and she loves it. I don't see that a lot. Usually it's just kind of, I had to get out of here because it was too much for me. They didn't do that. Then, okay, so this is definitely a play for a mystery. It's definitely doable. I was having trouble pinning down who did what, and all of a sudden this element came out, and I was like, oh, duh. Okay, I got it. But it was great because the clues lined up, the people lined up. Everybody looks guilty until they don't, for an obvious reason. Even the people who we know aren't guilty. We know, but they look it, so you have to investigate them. But as the information comes out, all of a sudden this one piece drops, and other stuff keeps coming. But when that one piece dropped, I was like, okay, it's this one for that reason with this thing. It's like, no, I wasn't playing Clue, because we knew how the person was killed, so I didn't need the weapon. But I was able to figure out who and why, and it made sense. So it was really, really, really good. It wasn't like the best ever. Yeah, I gave it 5 stars because it was exactly everything that I love about a good cozy mystery. So there's that one. But then I went on to read, I think it's The Knife Before Christmas. Let me look. So the second one is Twas the Knife Before Christmas. And it is book 2, right? Yeah, I think it's one I read second. If not, it's the one I read second anyway. The Knife Before Christmas, this one got me. I was flip-flopping between two people, got them both wrong. It wasn't it. Everything just kind of just laid out, and then all of a sudden, actually, I'm going to cut that out. You didn't hear what I just said, because I cut something, I gave something away, but basically there was a moment that I had a thought, and the thought was clear enough to me that I was like, oh, it has to, I just don't understand why, what is going on, how could this be a thing, everything. This one I gave 4 stars though, because the author added an element in here, I think, well, I thought, I shouldn't say, so I gave it 4 stars. If I had read on into the series before I reviewed it, I might have gone ahead and given it 5. But because of something that happened at the end, it feels like you get a little bit of a bait and switch with the genre. Because, and this is a crazy minor spoiler, okay? But it is a major one in the sense of how I was afraid the series was going to go. So I'm just going to put that out there. If you don't want to know it, skip to the next one. Life is good. We're almost done here. But at the end of this one, I got the feeling that Holly doubted whether this one character wasn't really Santa Claus. I mean, it really left you going, does she really think that? Where's this going? And it was clearly Holly when I was reading it. However, in the next book, we see it more someone else is convinced. And that worked better for me. But because, when you're reading through it, I can't totally recommend this one to someone who would find that absolutely offensive. I thought it was a bit of a bait and switch, and I was kind of annoyed by it, but I wasn't offended by it. It's cute, it's fun, it's whatever. The mystery was actually better than the first one, I think. But that really did kind of not sit well with me. Only because it isn't what we were kind of promised, if you will, based upon what we got in the first book and what we got in the synopsis and everything. So, not my favorite part of it, but I did love the mystery, and I kept reading. So, okay, the next one up was Stalking Around the Christmas Tree. Okay, so in this one, there's like this whole ballet theme going on. This troupe is putting on the Nutcracker in her town, which, it's a Christmas town, so it all works. And I mean, each book takes place on Christmas. So you basically have a murder every Christmas in this little town that's never had murders before. What? But Frost was really careful. She set it up to make this work. It feels realistic. I mean, if people were dropping like flies all year long, this would not work. But because we're only getting it at Christmas, it's sitting well. So this is book 3. I listened to the 3 books that were free with my Audible subscription. That's why I plowed through those 3. There's another one, and I feel guilty, but I got done with this one on like December 30th. So I was like, I could buy the next one, or I can just save it for next year. And it was hard. It was really hard. But I did save it for next year. So this one, I think, maybe I'm wrong, or maybe it was the next one that maybe there's 5 and I may have read 4. I could be wrong. We'll find out here in a minute. Anyway, but this one, I'm trying to remember. We'll find out. But this one, this whole ballet theme, who did it, why, there's lots of stuff going on behind the scenes and around the scenes and above and below and in and out of the scenes. I mean, all the sceneness is happening. And it, who did it and who didn't, and like the red herrings and stuff, they were spot on. Is this the one? I can't even think out loud, because if I do, it might give spoilers for the other ones. But what I like is that, in the first one, her dad is the one. That's not a spoiler. I'm pretty sure that's in the synopsis. But her dad is the one who is the biggest suspect. And then following on that, you kind of go down the thing. She's got a friend and then another friend. And, I like how that works. That you have people that are considered guilty based upon evidence that makes them look guilty. And yet, her job is, in her mind, is to, put a stop to this. And the sheriff is doing everything he can to keep her alive. Because that's what's really neat about these. These stay cozy and they're not gruesome or anything, but there is danger. She keeps putting her foot in and getting, involved in stuff that she really has no business being involved in, and people don't like it. Gee, I can't imagine why, duh. So, I mean, I like that part. I liked this. This one was definitely 5 stars. This is a 5-star series for me. It's what I like. It's got all the things. They're clean. They're, I don't remember any words in any of them that I didn't appreciate. And there weren't, snoring dogs again. And there weren't any inappropriate scenes or, and no, one of the things that I'm starting to notice in books is when a lack of respect for faith is in it or not. And I'm starting to really appreciate that even if it's not Christian fiction, some of them don't show a lack of respect for people with faith. in one way or another. Sometimes they just leave those people out. That's fine. You know, we're not in everybody's bubble. You know, I have a bubble that I live in, and you know, I like my bubble, and my bubble is full of people who look to scripture for everything they do. This is my bubble, and I'm happy with it. Other people don't have that in their bubble. I'm fine with that too. But what I'm not fine with, I don't shred people who don't have faith in my bubble. I don't want to read their bubble with them shredding mine, you know. And so I do appreciate that. Just I had to throw that out there. So let's see what we have next, because I don't even know what's next. Okay, next up are my 4 physical books. So I'm going to start with this one, Christmas Fire. It's subtitled Christmas with J.K. Chesterton. It's by Ryan Whitaker Smith, the guy who did my psalm prayers. Okay, here's the deal. At first, I will admit that I was disappointed, because what you do is in the daily readings, and the daily readings go through the 30th of the month, but in the daily readings, there is this section first by Chesterton, and then it ends, and then you have the rest is all by Smith, often with quotes by Chesterton. And then there's application and prayer and things like that. At first I was bummed, because I was like, wait a minute. I bought this for the Chesterton. I thought he was just the one who, the Smith was the one who collected all the Chesterton from all these, because I know they're like articles from magazines and journals and newspapers and stuff. It's just little, so I thought he was like the editor. That's the impression that I got from reading the synopsis on the website or whatever. And so I was expecting all Chesterton just collected by this guy, and then like the games and the recipes in the back, those were collected by him, yeah. So I was disappointed when there was like 3 times more Smith than Chesterton in those daily readings. But after like 3 or 4 of those daily readings, I was really grateful. So Chesterton is a brilliant man, and I want to read and understand Chesterton. Chesterton, he's hilarious. Okay, the guy is funny. Way more, humorous than someone like, say, Lewis. He's just a riot. But he is also brilliant, and I don't always get his brilliance as thoroughly with a first reading. Some of those things I had to read 2 or 3 times to really get where he was going with it. And then I would read Whitaker, and sometimes I would go back and I'd be like, okay, this is what Whitaker is saying, but is this what Chesterton said? And I'd have to go back and I'd have to really look. And that's fine. This is good. I'm not complaining, but because it was my first introduction to Chesterton essay type stuff, people struggle with Lewis. I don't usually struggle with Lewis, but I did struggle more with Chesterton, and yet I don't really struggle with either of their fiction. So I don't know what my problem is, but so I'm definitely glad that I did this. But now, of course, I want to read more Chesterton nonfiction now that I've been, introduced, and kind of expand the little gray cells, like make them medium gray cells maybe. So yeah, as you can see, I definitely tabbed quite a bit. There were a lot of great things in there, and yeah, I will need to redo this one in a few years, maybe 2, 3 at the most. Then a friend of mine, so I go on my writing retreat every year, and okay. This year when I went to my friend's house, Nancy, who wrote To Love a Falcon, about Finis the Falcon, the retelling, right? The mystery in Russia, all the things. Had the funny stories about the cage in the courtroom and the piano. Okay, that Nancy. She mentioned on Facebook that her friend had written kind of an Advent-y devotional preparing room. It says An Advent Journey Through Its Wonderful Life. It's by Rebecca Horvath or Horvath. I think it's Horvath. And so basically that's what she did. She took bits of It's a Wonderful Life and showed it through the lens of Scripture. So you could kind of see how, and I mean, I might have 3, didn't tab a ton, but I did tab some in here. It's a really thin little book. I really wish she had done a much smaller size so that it was more comfortable to hold and wasn't so flimsy, because mine arrived bent because of how flimsy it is. Because it really is short, but there's richness in here that I didn't expect, and I should have known. If Nancy says it's good, then it's gonna be good. So, but it made me want to watch the movie again and see it through the lens of Scripture that she showed it through. And it was really good. I may do it again next year and actually just watch the movie a few times as I'm reading it, just to kind of get a different feel. I think it'll be kind of cool. So yeah, I definitely recommend it. Then the next one I read was Let Earth Receive Her King by Alistair Begg. And for some reason, all year, I've never done this before, but all December, I kept trying to call him Alexander Begg. Why? I am unable to I don't know. This one was really great. I gave this 5 stars. It was rich without being heavy. There was a lot of depth to each of the devotionals, and they kind of, they had a theme. They followed it through. It was strong. It was impactful, and yet it wasn't weighty. And that was kind of nice. I definitely think I want to do another one by him next year if he has a new one, or if there's one that's in the past that I don't know about. This was really good. I did quite a bit more tabbing on this one than the last one, and a little less than on the Chesterton one. The Chesterton, a lot of the tabbing on that was, I want to look at this deeper. Yeah, this is one of the things I really loved. It says, as Augustine reminded us, God has made us for himself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in him. I thought that was really good. Okay, and then this. Yes. God works in such a way that we begin to love what he loves. All this comes from divine heart surgery, where the Almighty fulfills his promise to remove the heart of stone from your flesh and give you a heart of flesh. I was just like, yes. So there's so many. I can't read them all. It would take all day. There is no way for the sorrowful to be comforted, for the broken to be healed, for this light to dawn upon a human heart and mind, except that God does it. Yeah, that's like the essence of Christmas. I mean, it just is. So yes, all the yes. I really loved it. Okay, and I finally finished before the end of the year my was it September? I think this was my September read. So it took me a little time to get to it, but I finished it, and I'm so glad I did. So at the beginning of this, I wasn't sure I liked where the book was going. Michael is not a likable protagonist through almost the whole book. You don't like him, and you're not supposed to. He's not likable, and yet he's sympathetic. You do understand why he is who he is and why he is the way he is. You get all that. But yeah. So in this one, so Michael shares a name with his uncle whom he lives with. His uncle gets a Christmas invitation, and his uncle isn't in town. So Michael goes to this party at it's very close, and it's at this very big, swanky house, if you will, belonging to a music producer, big in the music industry. Everybody knows this guy, and he's hoping that maybe he'll get an in. He's been kicked out of his band, and he's just like, yeah, no. So he wants another opportunity. Well, he gets there and he meets the guy. He also meets the guy's wife, who was a major person in the music industry once upon a time, until she met Christ and basically walked. She didn't want the focus on her anymore, and so she changed her life. They have a daughter. The daughter is blind, which wouldn't really matter most of the time, but in this one, it's kind of, it's almost metaphoric. It's really cool. This book, okay, I just got to say, like I said, I didn't think I liked where it was going, and then I did. But, you know, Michael, there isn't a major transformation in him spiritually in this book. You don't see it anyway. You see that it is happening at the end, but you don't get the whole picture. What you get instead, which is unusual and yet kind of nice because we don't see this enough, you get the impact of people with strong, genuine faith on him. You see them investing in him. You see his reaction to that investment. You see all those things, but you don't really see it the way you're used to. You know, you're used to seeing someone, you know, meet Christ, and you see their growth pattern. You see their transformation. You see the redemption. In this one, we get a picture of where the redemption is going to come from and why he's going to turn to Christ and why, you know, who invested in him and what they did. And that's really cool. I gave it 5 stars. There was a point where I was like, I'm going to be hard pressed to give it 3. I wasn't so sure about it. And yet I couldn't put it down once I got going past that initial moment of, oh, I don't know. I don't think I like what's happening here. Once I got past that, I had this moment of, well, okay. Then I couldn't put it down because you see him snowballing and spiraling into terrible directions, and then you see these roadblocks put up that stop him long enough for him to catch his breath. And is he going to change his direction or not? Sometimes he doesn't, you know. This is hot. I'm turning this. I'm melting over here. I'm melting. So yeah, but by the end, you see him do every horrible thing that he can do, and you see him repent of it. Has he completely handed himself over to the Lord? You don't see that, but you see it's coming, and it's really funny because it's a story about him, but it's also the story about the people who invested in him, their faith, and how their faith impacts him without seeing him change based on them. He still needs the cross. And so, I don't know, I loved it. It's kind of like, I said it in my review on Goodreads. It's a little bit like I read a book that is the equivalent of listening to a song, and that fits with all the musical stuff in here, that if you're a musical person, if you love 90s, 80s, 90s music, you're probably going to love this thing. It's chock full of stuff that I think is from then. I don't know, because if it's post 63 or so, I'm not very clear on it. But in a sense, it is a little bit like, you know, I love the oldie moldy stuff. Okay. I almost like nothing post 1963. I just don't. But in the mid-ish 80s, mid to late 80s, Bon Jovi came out with that Living on a Prayer. And I liked it. My friends loved that song. They played it for me, and I was prepared not to like it. It starts up, and I'm like, there go all the instruments played all the ways I don't like. Was not impressed. And the guy starts to sing, and I'm like, I'm not going to understand the words. I never do. And guess what? I understood the words. I understood almost all the words. That was highly unusual for me. I couldn't. I always had trouble. You know, I'm accustomed to much more clearly enunciated words than you get in most rockish type stuff. I don't like the wailing. I don't like the runs. I don't like the don't bother to enunciate stuff. Ugh. It really bugs me. Oh man. So the fact that I could understand the words, the fact that I liked the words, the fact that I liked the point of the song was really cool, because here is this one song in this vast sea of all the stuff that my friends are always trying to get me to listen to, that I'm like, not interested. All right, here I'm going. I mean, and it happens today. You know, I have friends that will send me, oh, you're going to love this song. And I'm just like, yeah, really love that song. Yeah, no, just no. Okay, I mean, I don't like half of what we sing in church. Okay, I'm just saying. We all have our preferences. What's in here is not my usual literary preference. And yet it stands out and it stands alone. And it's because Erin Bartels is brilliant. I like what she does with words and how she points us through them to Christ, but kind of sideways, you know, it's not the same. So yeah, it was a great reading month. It was, I mean, I read 9 books in the second half of the month. And I only have 4 here, but that's okay. That's fine. So I'm happy to be able to put these away. That's going to be really cool. So yeah, that was December, and we're done, and we're finally fully into January. So yeah, that was it. This is what I read. Whoops. Oh, it's such a heavy snack. No, but this is what I read, and then I've got my little extras, and yeah. I'll see you soon.